right. Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of Diamond Rivera Films, and you are tuned into a special edition of Live Discussions with Diamond. And today, before I announce this special guest, I definitely want to give a big shout out to Jorge Elizondo from the Dallas Bachata Festival for being able to connect myself with the gentleman you see here. And without further ado, I want to uh, introduce the one and only from all the way from Australia, Mr. Nestor Manuelian. Am I correct?
Manuelian, yeah,
Oh
Manuelian,
yes, perfect.
yeah.
All right, awesome, awesome.
How you
Yeah,
going?
Nestor. Oh man, Nestor, I just really want to give much appreciation and love to what you've done for your dance community as a whole after all of these years and continue to be, and realizing, especially through George, has helped me understand the pieces to the puzzle or the predecessors, the people before us in the generation that helped build this bachata scene for what we see it as it is present day. At least before we get started as well, um, I want you to again understand from a person coming from New York City, especially with the bachata scene, we know so much information from the people that give it to us, and realizing the pieces to the puzzle that I say again, because with our dance community, especially bachata, it's really kind of really started around the late 2000s, and realizing that you are actually one of those huge pieces to the puzzle. This is an amazing opportunity to really soak in a lot of knowledge and understanding, and to understand what it was like during those times, and understanding how you were able to still adapt and maneuver and just perform and be able to inspire. So again, Nestor, truly appreciate you coming on tonight.
No worries, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, absolutely. And for me, what we're going to be able to do tonight is help myself and also help the people that we be able to listen to this uh, a better understanding of Nestor, not just on the stage, but also off the stage, but also realizing the journey it takes to still be a relevant figure in this dance community with dancers coming and going.
I
And
will,
just
I will, I will let you know in advance. My wife doesn't understand me, so I'll do my best for you to understand.
no worries. And for myself, being younger, being younger, I mean, in my interviews, I've let a lot of my guests know I've been dancing since I was five, about 1995, 96 time. And with bachata, I was probably in my early 20s, and then or actually late teens, but really understanding with bachata music, especially, and the atmosphere is so much different than our salsa scene that's been around much longer.
Yep.
Um, so being able to understand it from a person as well who lives in the Central European time zone and that frame, and understanding what it was like, it's really important. And again, I thank you. So what I do with a lot of my guests as well is we always are going to understand what you've been able to do and the contributions on the stage, but also off the stage means so much more, because it helps myself and the guests see more of the human side. So for me, a really important key is understanding the beginning, all the way from the beginning to where
Yep.
kind of dance had entered into your life. So I would love for you to kind of give more information for that.
Okay, I think mine's a very common story. In a sense where I started dancing, chasing women. I was a bricklayer by trade, so I work in construction. And I have a twin brother. His name is Jamie, and so I used to work on site all day. And he was dancing one night, and I was like, "Hold on, this isn't fair. I'm dancing. I'm working with guys all day, and he's spending all day with women. Got to fix this problem." So, so I started to dance. And then it didn't take long that I started to dance for the women, but I fell in love with the dance.
Hmm.
And salsa was my first passion, and I still love salsa. Um, but that's it. That's how it started. It started as a journey of getting to know women. Um, Luckily, now I've got my woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through dance,
um,
I'm assuming.
yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. She was one of my dancers. I did the naughty thing, the teacher student thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it worked out well. But yeah, so that's how it all began. I started for that particular reason. I'm Uruguayan.
Okay.
So I've got a Latin background, but we came to Australia when we were 4, and our parents tried to force the culture on us. And because we were going to school
Mm,
and there was no Latinas where we
yeah.
tried to push the culture away, you know.
Gotcha.
But my parents instilled in us inside the house, you need to speak Spanish inside the house. And so if we wanted ice cream, we had to write essays in Spanish. And,
Mm,
they used to make us listen to Spanish music and Latin music, sorry. And so therefore the culture was always there, but we kind of pushed it aside. And it
gotcha.
wasn't,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until about 2003,
Hmm.
2004 that I decided to start dancing because I saw what my twin brother was doing and it looked like so much fun. And that's how my dance journey began. And I've literally danced every single day since.
That's amazing. And I think you touched on a
Yeah.
really important topic of being coming from Uruguay, coming to Australia, and having your parents really putting that culture. Okay, as you said, we're kind of trying to take the culture away and wanted you to assimilate to what was around you,
Yeah.
because again, they might feel like they want you to have the best opportunity possible, but also you having your own mindset and kind of like giving a little bit of pushback, and it's
Yeah.
a. Mhm.
Yeah, of course, being around the kids at school, at that point in time, we were what they called wogs,
Gotcha.
immigrants. And so therefore we didn't want to be that.
Gotcha.
You know,
And I
we
understand that you wanted to just be one of the people, just have
yeah.
enjoy, yeah. And
Um,
no, and a question I definitely have is, what was that like, that experience of growing up being of a different I mean, not just so much generation, but from a different cultural background. Was it easy throughout your life to assimilate to that kind of culture?
I think at first it wasn't easy, especially for my parents. Um, because I mean we came to Australia as political refugees. My
Yes.
dad had $30 in his pocket, 4 kids. So obviously at first it wasn't easy, um, but it was the best decision they ever made.
Hmm.
We had our ups and downs, but Australia has really given us a life that we could never get back in Uruguay.
Hmm.
Um, and as much as my heart is still in Uruguay and most of my family, I'm very Australian, you know. Um, and they talk about racism and stuff, but
Yeah.
I think that it's an unfortunate thing that happens everywhere.
Yes.
And whenever you're in a foreign land, you're going to experience it. What we found, and with what our parents found, was keep your culture, but assimilate. You don't have to separate the two.
Hmm.
And so, we did that, and we were fortunate enough that, in Sydney, there's different cultural suburbs.
Yes.
And so, what my parents did was originally we were in the Latino suburbs. My parents removed us from that,
Hmm.
not because they didn't want to be part of the Latin culture, but because they wanted us to experience where we were.
Gotcha.
Um, and I think that was one of the best things they did for us because we were able to assimilate a lot faster and a lot better. But at the same time, even though we kind of gave a bit of a pushback, we were still able to keep our culture, our language. I read, I write, I understand, I speak everything Spanish fluently
Hmm.
because of what they did. Because, Spanish here in Australia is not even a second language. You'll be lucky to learn it at school.
Oh, okay. And that's
Yeah.
and that's also realizing, because again, me coming from New York, we have a preset notion on how things are, and sometimes we forget that other places, other cities, countries, there's a different set of rules. Everybody's not the same, and then that kind of brings me now to understanding. You said around 2003, that's kind of where dance came into your
Yeah.
life. And then I would love to know, how was the Sydney salsa scene, or when you kind of got into dance, what was that scene like during those times? Because this is pre video
For you,
recordings, and
YouTube,
everything.
bachata. There was videos back then, and interestingly enough, the only way that we ever found out about what was happening outside Sydney with the salsa scene was we would go onto, like, there was one specific website that we all used to go to learn from, and it was called the Mayan
Okay.
Club Mayan from Los Angeles. They used to have this competition called the Mayan Club, which at that point in time was like the thing to watch or the thing to be at. And so we used to watch those videos from their website, and you have to sit there waiting for it to download, you know. But it's before
Yeah.
your time, so no.
No, no. No, and it's
So
funny you said that. You said Club Mayan, like the fact that you said club, because I remember that. I remember that. I remember hearing about that club, but like you said, realizing that this is a time where you couldn't, that the dancing wasn't fully accessible. You had to really like go and find it and look for it.
yeah, and so the Australian scene was built around first. There was a lot of Latino immigration, a lot of Brazilians, but things like lambada were here first, and so people were using lambada steps to dance salsa. Or,
Mm,
you'd have your very traditional, Latinos growing up would do the cumbia step for everything.
yes.
So that's what the scene was like. And then slowly, as the scene around the world started to develop, Australia started to develop. We went from your, more traditional cumbia step, salsa, lambada turns and dips from the Brazilians that were putting it into salsa. And then all of a sudden, Cuban kicked in and rueda was a massive thing. And so when I first started, so I remember going to watch my brother dance and compete and do all this stuff. And that's when the more traditional, and then rueda came in, there was rueda comps. But then when I just started, Linea had just kicked in. So on one and on two, it literally just started in Australia. So then I started right when that transition happened. So
Mm,
I've seen the scene transition from your regular Latin parents cumbia step dancing to more rueda influence with calls
yes.
to then the linear styles of on one and on two kicking in.
Mm,
And then all of a sudden, when we started with festivals and stuff here, and you'd have dancers from Europe come along, and Sydney just became a huge, I guess, mixing pot of all
mm-hmm.
different styles on one, on two, what they used to call back with people like, Leon Rose and Susanna Montero and Super Mario UK style and a whole bunch of stuff. So it really developed, and it's gone through so many stages, and it still continues to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but back then, even before our first Congress, it was all mainly nightclub based.
Okay.
Um, and then slowly, because Australia is a very sports orientated country,
Yes.
culturally dancing was never going to take off because dancing is not for guys growing up. It's not part of the Australian culture. Wherever you come from a Latin culture, it's very natural, right? It's
Yeah.
part of what we do growing up. Um, so the only way that we were able to take dancing to the masses is to turn it into some kind of fitness or sport. And that's where the dance academies started and the dance studios. And
Mm-hmm.
so now we have dance studios everywhere, and we have fitness classes, we have salsa classes, bachata, kizomba, zouk, reggaeton. Um, but people start through the dance journey first as a sport or fitness before it becomes more of a social.
Gotcha. And I definitely understand that because from my experience knowing about Australia with sports, it is a very heavily sported, heavily kind of alpha male machismo. And I'm not slighting it, but you kind
No,
of
no, I know what
agree.
you mean.
Yeah, you understand. It's like I understand in certain sections of the world that when it comes to dance, it's mainly seen as a feminine thing. But
Yep.
realizing that over time and generations evolve and minds evolve and ideas evolve, you're realizing now that if you kind of make it into a sport and create these academies, you really can take these people who are really interested, come in, and that kind of helps me now transition. And when you talked about the researching of finding different dance events or groups performing all over the world, a person for me is one gentleman specifically. I think he is from Australia, Oliver Pineda.
Yes.
Yes, and for me, what we had in the U.S. is called Nuevo Tech, and that was kind of a video library in a sense of dancers from all over the world. And
I
this
know it.
company, yeah, and so understanding like you get to now have options of saying, I get to see this person and this person. I get to see this World Salsa Championships, or when I remember when dance events were on ESPN, and
Yeah, I was on that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
realizing like, and that's amazing to even hear because I still remember coming home and watching those competitions and saying, wow, they're now giving our dance or our community a shot and bringing it to more of a mainstream approach. I mean, it allowed people from all over the world to tune in for that hour or two and see people like yourself and many people I know as friends, like on an ESPN platform competing, for recognition. And I definitely would love to know, what was that experience like of actually competing on a platform like that?
First of all, since the very first World Salsa Championship, which we started with Albert Torres and the Salsa Seven, as they were known at the time, I've literally competed every single year since about 2006, 2007.
Yes.
I haven't missed one year, you know, um, and for me, even seeing the journey of the World Salsa Championship to where it is today, which the organizers split. So you've got the World Latin Dance Cup and the World Salsa Summit. The styles have evolved. The number of styles have evolved. The number of categories have evolved. The dancing in general has evolved so much. Every year I go, I get to learn so much more. I've lost a lot more than what I've won, but every year what I gain is more and more because I get to see, if you think about some of the stars of today, like Karen and Ricardo.
Yes.
I saw them from the very first competition all the way through to where they are now. So performing on that stage was amazing from the very start when we did the ESPN, when ESPN was filming.
Yes.
But what's been even more amazing is the transition to see where it is today and how much dancing has grown.
Absolutely.
And how much dancing, has come from something that you do with your family at home to something that is now literally danced in every corner of the world. Yeah. And it's amazing to think that our Latin culture, like last year I taught in places like Nepal.
Wow.
So for me to go teach bachata and introduce bachata, up in the mountains of Nepal was amazing experience, and nothing I ever dreamed of. Who's going to dance bachata up, near the Himalayas somewhere?
Yeah.
But yeah, they do it.
And that's like, you realize the reach, and for so long, our dance community always wanted to be noticed and understood. And there's always that we say our community is so big, but it really is small. And realizing that without the help of, in a sense, the corporate America backing, it's really always had been an underground, but as of recent. And like you said, going from the ESPNs, and then even though with the split and having now not one but two platforms to allow artists and people to come, and you touched on a really good subject that over the years in these competitions, things change, styles change, and realizing that, in my opinion, a big game changer in the competitions was the Colombians. For me, that was
100%.
for me, it's like, because they
100%.
used the cabaret, they really showed the performance. Because again, when the competitions first started in such places, there was a specific style, but over the years, things changed, and people want to see something refreshing, and people want to see something new. And I think for me, having that option of going to a congress or a festival or social, now, all right, now let's step into the actual competitive world and see what that's like. So you yourself being able to say, I've dabbled in both and have experience from both. And then I think you said you've been doing it since 2007.
Yes.
So that's about 13 years of like literally competing every year. And that's amazing.
I've been performing and competing every year without fail.
Because you realize too, even in our dance community, that honestly, dancers come and go. It's like probably maybe a 3 to 6 year span if you're really dedicated, a little bit longer. But we as dancers, as a sport, we do get injured. We do have injuries, and things change. But for me now, understanding kind of where your dance journey started, and you also having experience in the competitive world, especially in salsa, how did actually bachata come into your life? And then kind of really motivate you and you having the opportunity to be a part with the first Sydney, is it Bachata Congress, correct?
Bachata Festival.
Bachata
Yeah.
Festival.
Yeah. Look, similar story to salsa when I first started. See, at the time, um, my girlfriend at the time was living in England.
Hmm.
She was teaching over there, and she was telling me, because she was a dancer as well, about this new dance that she was learning. It's called bachata.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. And during that same period, Juan Ruiz, who's my business partner for
Hmm.
Bachata Festival, he just arrived in Sydney from Chicago, and he just happened to that day. I think it was the next day. He walked into my dance studio, and I met him at the front desk. And I said, "Hey, how you going? I'm Nestor." I said, "Juan." And so all of a sudden, I took him out that night because it was his first night in Sydney, and we developed this friendship. And then we were talking, and I asked him what kind of styles he liked, and he told me he did bachata. And I said, "You do bachata? Actually, I need to learn bachata. So let's trade. You know, I'll show you around, and I get you into sites and everything here, and you teach me some bachata. I want to impress my girlfriend when I go over there to visit her." Um, and that's how I started with bachata. He just taught me the basics. And it was basically to impress my girlfriend at the time. Um, Probably didn't work because we split up not long after.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, I started listening to the music, and I fell in love with the music and the dance. And again, there was no other purpose, not for work, not for competition, not for performance. I started it purely for the girl.
Yeah. I mean, you just have an honest approach to it. It
Yeah.
is what it is, and just realizing then you going from that, and then really now having an opportunity to have your own event. That right there, it says a lot.
Yeah, look, I started to fall in love with the dance, and then I remember going up to the DJs in the nightclubs and taking a CD with some
Mm.
bachata on there. Back
Yep.
then, it was like
Yeah.
the song "Obsession" by Aventura, and some Mochi and Alexandra back then, and Extreme. And so I used to take the CD to the DJ. Can you please play this? And I remember them specifically saying, "What's this?" I'm like, "It's bachata." Like, we don't play bachata here. I just play me one. And so because they used to be my mates, they used to play one song, and then the dance floor would empty, and it would be me and my girlfriend, and that was it. And then slowly it started to grow from there.
Hmm.
Um, Juan was involved with my school, and because we got him to start teaching some classes because it was brand new and it was a way for him to get into the scene as well, and it just took off from there.
Mm.
Um, and long story short, me and Juan spoke about running a bachata party because no one was
Yeah.
running a bachata party, and then we said, well, let's just try it, see what happens. A lot of people thought it wasn't going to work. We said, let's do it anyway. Got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, from a one night party, it became a 1 day of workshops and party. And people were contacting us from around Australia, from New Zealand. People
Hmm.
like Rodney from the US are like, you guys have got Bachata Party Festival. Can we come? We're like, okay. So then
Yeah.
we turned it into a 2 day festival. And that's where it just took off.
Wow. And realizing, because again, you coming from being a salsa dancer to now that transition of dabbling into that bachata community, because we realize, like I've said before, bachata was always at one point really with dancing, it was seen as underground, seen as kind of the taboo of we just do with our families. But then realizing that people who did love bachata dancing felt the need to, like, hey, let's put something together. And I think people as well, they definitely assume that with bachata, that you hear like Aventura, being really raised in the Bronx and the Heights, you would assume New York was the first, but no, it was actually Sydney that did the first Bachata Festival. And that's amazing to really, when the height of bachata music was really hitting, in my opinion, for my generation, realizing that a place in Europe was able to create this event. And like you said, you really didn't have high expectations. But how was that, like that actual 2 day experience? Did you kind of have a clear mind and understand what was going on, or everything was just going really fast for you?
Um, Look, we followed the same, I guess, system as a normal salsa congress because that's what we knew. That's what we were doing, being a part of. But we decided to do 50% of the workshops bachata and 50% other styles because one of our goals were to spread bachata. And so our approach was if you want to be part of our event, you need to give us one bachata performance and then one of whatever style.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, all the schools started getting involved, and everyone started, creating the bachata choreographies. Mind you, bachata back then was very different to what it is now.
Yes.
And it was still new, so there was a lot of creativity. Like I know when I started with my bachata, this is before bachata sensual, before moderna, all this stuff.
Yeah.
One of the first dances that I learned was lambada. So therefore, I started putting some of my lambada moves into my bachata to try and make it different. And it was seen as not right back then.
Yeah. I
You
know
know?
that you're not sticking to the standard. You're actually,
Yeah.
because what you're doing is now fusion. And now you're
Yes.
fusing two of styles together.
Yeah.
But you also say that you're fusing them rather than say this is what bachata is. You're actually saying,
Yeah.
no, this is bachata, this is zouk, lambada, and I'm meshing them together to create my own style.
Yeah. And so, at the festival, we saw salsa dancers putting a lot more more intricate turn patterns
Yep.
into their bachata because nobody was really doing bachata, so they just did what they knew to bachata rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden, that's how bachata took off in Australia. It was the fact that it was accessible to everyone. All the schools were then able to teach it and, put their own twist on things. Obviously, still with the bachata rhythm, but they were able to create their own thing. And so then everybody felt like they could be involved from the beginner dancer all the way through to the more experienced dancers because everybody was trying something new.
Mm. And then,
And then,
yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to ask a question is from understanding where it really started and you being honestly one of the pioneers of creating these festivals and events that we have now and kind of putting that stamp on it and saying like, hey, this is the first one and we're going to learn from it, but realizing the success from it. And fast forward all of these years later, there's a Bachata Festival Congress almost everywhere, even in the US, but also in Europe. And how honestly, in my opinion, coming from salsa and entering into the bachata scene, it is really like night and day for me because the atmosphere, the ambiance it feels a
yep,
little different. And it's really appealing to knowing that myself, you, and many other guests that I've talked to who are bachata dancers or call themselves bachata dancers were originally salsa dancers. So
yep,
we knew what it
yeah.
was like to go be in this part, but it's like, hey, let's kind of step over to the other side and see what it's like. And again, like from the festivals and the congresses, I would love to know what was the experiences like of going to congresses and festivals, traveling and being able to do that.
It's probably one of the highlights of my career. I've been very fortunate to travel all around the world. You know, a lot of Southeast Asia, a little bit of Europe, a lot of the US, and I can honestly say, like, when I look back in my life, if I didn't have that, I would have missed out on so much. And when I say missed out on so much, most importantly, the people I've met, the things I've experienced, the things I've learned. Because every time you go to a new festival, there's different people. Different people react differently to your workshops, react differently to your shows. And so everything at first was a massive learning curve for me. Um, but one thing that I can honestly say is one, I would never change my journey for the world. It was absolutely amazing. More than anything, is I was very fortunate that I made a career, not out of being the best, but I believe out of loving my dancing so much that was contagious. And the fact that I got to travel and just have fun and be with the
Mm-hmm.
people. I was never and am not one of those dancers that will go and dance in the middle of a circle or for the cameras.
Yes.
If you're dancing for the cameras there, I know there are beginners over there who are not going to be in front of those cameras. I'll go over there.
Yes.
And I love doing that because I remember when I first started, those people who came to ask me to dance or who knew I was a beginner and gave me a chance to dance. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today.
Mm.
And so that's one thing that I love about festivals is getting to know those people that are too shy to be in front of those cameras, or who think they're not at the level to dance with, with all the top dancers. So
Hmm.
that is probably one of my most favorite things to do.
That's amazing, and you touched on something very important that I believe in. As when you said if you wanted to be part of the crowd that wasn't just always in the middle and wanted to be seen, you wanted to be a part of the people, a part of the audience, the other
Yeah,
collective of people that are there just to enjoy themselves and not cause too much attention. And
yeah,
for me being a videographer, that was also an approach that I had was, hey, as a person who provides media and commercials and just visuals for events to highlight what's in store in terms of the pros and the demos and workshops, my focus was when it came time to the socials, I'm going to focus on the pros, but I'm going to focus on the people there that paid their hard earned money to come and
yeah,
attend these events. And that's what's important to me because no matter before I'm a dancer, I'm a lover of the arts. But I
yeah,
also appreciate that for our events that we throw, we're a part of, or we go to, how much money is entailed, and realizing like, hey, without these people giving their hard-earned money to these events, a lot of events wouldn't survive. So for me, it's like
100%.
giving love and appreciation for not just the professionals and people that do it on the stage, but for those that come to enjoy those artists. I think that's very important. So it's amazing just to be able to hear from you a touching note like that because a lot of times, especially in our dance culture communities, there's a lot of ego, and there's a lot
Of
of
course,
for people who've done it longer. For some of them, it's the sense of entitlement, but for a lot of others, it's just they love dance so much and they want to see people happy. And being a part of a community that just wants to see people happy, have a great time, and be able to again, socialization is key. That's a big key when we're coming
100%.
to our dance community. We thrive on that. So even with what we're going through now, that put a halt on a lot. And people don't realize the toll it takes, not just physically, but mentally on people being isolated, quarantined.
Yeah.
But at least before we get into that, I definitely want to get into my segment now that I call the randoms, which is 10 questions. You have about 5 or 10 seconds to answer
All
each
right.
question. Yeah,
Here we go.
I don't think it should be too hard, but allows myself and the audience to gain a lot more perspective on you and kind of really get that human side. So we're going to begin. First question is, what is your favorite food?
McDonald's.
Okay. Favorite workout song?
Eye of the Tiger.
Oh, okay. All right. The dream vacation destination?
Bora Bora. I got together with my wife there on a work trip. I then got engaged there, and then I got married there. Best place on earth.
All right. I definitely would love to go there.
Yeah.
What did you want to be at 10 years old?
A football player.
Okay. Football, and we're talking about soccer.
Soccer. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
because for people who in the yes.
this is how far I got. Jersey.
Okay. But it's still a passion of yours. The next
Ah,
question
I
would
love it.
be, what's your spirit animal?
Wolf.
Okay. Partner work or footwork? There's a dance question.
Partner work.
What would be your superpower?
Oh, consistency.
Okay. Three people that are most influential to you.
Okay. One is Katrina Quinto, which is my business and dance partner for many, many years now. We still dance together and we still have a business together. She's probably the most influential because she started as my student, became my equal, and now in many ways she's my teacher now.
Mm,
She's absolutely amazing. The other one is Albert Torres.
yes.
When I first started dancing through his competition, through his events, he gave me a lot of support and a lot of opportunities. And even until the day he passed, may he rest in peace. He had prepared an award at the LA Salsa Festival for my contribution to the Latin scene. And even to that day after he passed, he had that ready waiting for me. And unfortunately, because he passed, he wasn't able to give it to me. But then Edwin Rivera did at the last
Ah,
festival on his behalf. So even up to the moment when he passed away, I know that he would think about me and helping me in different ways. And
mhm.
so he's big influence in my dance career.
Hmm.
Um, and then this comes as a dual package, and my parents.
Okay.
I would not be here if it wasn't for my parents for many reasons. One, my work ethic comes from my parents. They came to Australia with 4 kids, $30 in their pocket, and they created a really good life for us. So I made a decision from when I was young that I was not going to let them down, and I was going to live life to the fullest because this is what they've done for us. And so I took their work ethic
Hmm.
and their morals on board, and that has been, probably one of the most significant things to get me to where I am today.
Awesome. The next question would be, what is a special talent that many wouldn't know about you?
I'm a good singer. My wife says she thinks I'm good at singing so low that nobody can hear me. Otherwise, I get in trouble.
I like that. And the last one would be, if you were on an island, what are 3 things that you would have with you?
My wife, my music, and probably my dance crew.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's definitely special. You're a true dancer.
yeah. I
You
love my
know,
dancing.
absolutely. And, again, I thank you for doing this segment because it allowed myself and the people that are going to be listening to understand a little bit more about you. Because, again, we love what you can contribute on stage, but it's also what off the stage that really matters as well to people like myself.
Yeah,
And you touch on a person, Albert Torres. I've known him because I've actually had an interview with Edwin Rivera, and me and Edwin go back to about '97 because
yeah.
we were in the same dance school with David Melendez.
Wow.
Yeah, so for me,
Yeah,
I go way back.
I'm really good friends with Edwin.
Yeah, I mean,
Really
like,
good.
so just realizing the how everybody's kind of related, that relation, and then kind
Yeah,
of brings me here now with you. It's amazing because again, I was always as a dancer and performing from David's side, realizing that we had an opportunity to take our dancing much further than our block, much further than our city, and being able to travel and realizing when I would hear about Australia has a dance scene, a person from New York saying, "What?" But then
yeah,
realizing and researching and seeing how big it is because it's not just people from Australia that comes, people from New Zealand, people from the UK, people from all
yeah,
over that come to these type of events. And that shows a lot because it really shows that your atmosphere and the hospitable nature that Australia must have, it definitely is resounding because, I mean, coming from the first event that you guys had and then seeing how bachata has blown up globally, not just with music, but the dancing. And now having bachata congresses, bachata festivals, competitions solely focused on bachata.
yeah,
Even the most amazing thing I've been seeing, honestly, of recent years was the Las Arenas projects that either Island Touch does and other people do of Edwin Ferreras going back to DR and
yeah,
working with the people there and creating new artists for new music.
yeah.
But, so it's really important, and I would love to know from your opinion, from your experience of being there from when it began until now, what are changes that you're really happy that are happening, or certain things you still would love to see happen within our community?
Okay. I think one of the best things that's happened to spread the dance and to spread I guess, the knowledge of the dance is evolution. With evolution of the music comes evolution of the dance. It's inevitable in any style. And where sometimes you can get into the debate about what is and what isn't, something that you can't deny is that because of the evolution, bachata is now recognized and danced all over the world.
Hmm.
In saying that, I think it's important that whenever you learn anything, in this instance is bachata, you got to know where it came from.
Yeah.
Because if you want to really appreciate where you are, you need to know where it came from. And so, therefore, if there's one thing that I would say for our scene is continue with the evolution if it's going to continue to keep people happy dancing all over the world.
Yes.
For me, the most important thing about dancing is to have fun, you know? Um, and so, therefore, when it comes to bachata, if the music continues to change and the dance continues to change, that's great because more people are going to dance it. But everyone should still learn where it came from. Because if you know the roots of it, you will implement it into what you do amongst everything else.
Hmm.
If you don't know the roots of bachata, there's no way you're going to implement it into what you do, you know. But I think that's the same with any other style. You know,
Yeah.
salsa is going back to the very strong Cuban influence that it used to have at the start. You
Hmm.
know, it pulled away from that. It went more into the technical world, and now it's
Yeah.
going back to that. And so I think the same thing's going to happen with bachata. It's you know, history goes round in circle. But if you don't forget where you came from, you can go as far as you want,
Hmm.
as long as you come back and check in, and go
Yep.
check in.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that a lot. And for me now, I also wanted to know when you said, especially how when bachata dancing really started becoming of a mainstream, or what I would say is the YouTube days of going on
Yep.
YouTube and searching a name and realizing that was the only way you were able to learn sometimes and just see what other people are doing. When we had bachata moderna, we had what they call traditional or moderna or sensual or urban. What is truly your opinion on that growth and evolution of the dance style itself? Like, how do you really have you been able to adapt to that sensual, period? Like, is that something now that's more that you like or
You know, I've been teaching beginners or introducing people to bachata for 15, 16 years now. One thing I always say is this: bachata is bachata, period.
thank you.
Whatever titles you want to give it, my comparison is this. You know, I speak English here in Australia. You guys speak English over in the US. They speak English in Canada. They speak English in South Africa. They speak English in New Zealand, in the UK, and many different countries. Fundamentally, it's all English.
Hmm.
But we all have our different slang, our different accent, our different expressions, you know? And so that's what makes us different as far as the languages in different countries. But fundamentally, it's still English.
Yes.
And so, what do I think about the evolution and the dance? I think it's great. I think everyone's developing a different accent, different slang, right? But fundamentally, it's all bachata, and that's that's one place that we can all meet with our
Yeah.
basics, you know. And then from there, it's not bad to have differences, you know. I think if you ever want to stand out in life, you have to be yourself, not a replica of someone else. And so therefore, if as long as you stand from the same platform, doesn't matter how much you evolve. As long as you respect where you came from, I think evolution is great. I'm not one of the people that is against evolution. I am not one of the people who is against traditional. I love all of it. I've adapted
Hmm.
to all of it. I've lived through all of it. I'm going to continue to live through it. And so the way I see it is, the more accents I understand, the different slang that I know from each country, I can
Yeah.
go and communicate with anybody. Why restrict myself?
And yeah, I agree because what people have to understand is, especially, you have the bachata purists, you have the
Yes.
people in the scene that just want it to be how it used to be. But again, as you said, times change, people change, we all evolve, and styles are going to get a lot more. It's really the fusion of it all. People are
Yeah.
going like people still now are using zouk lambada moves in bachata and vice versa,
100%.
just like in bachata now you or even in salsa they mesh the two. So again, everything is evolving. It's really everybody has a different taste.
So
And
I'm going to
uh,
just sorry, cut you over there a little bit. I'm going to tell a funny story. So I compete a lot, and I always tell my
uh,
students that they should compete to push their dancing, to learn more. And so one of the things I've always done is I like to lead from the front. If I'm going to say something, then I lead by example and do the same.
yes.
And so here in Australia, there's a comp up in Brisbane, which is up north, and they have this freestyle division. And so I always tell my students, jump in and do the freestyle. Don't train it, you just freestyle, regardless of what other people are doing.
Hmm.
And so what I did is I like to lead by example. You know, tell them to get out of their comfort zone. So I did the Zouk professional freestyle division.
Mm.
Mind you, I'm not a Zouk dancer. I know my Zouk basics. And so what I did in this competition was I went in there and I did my basic Zouk steps. And then I would do different body rolls and head rolls that I do in bachata that I learned through the sensual style.
Yeah.
And then I'd go back to my Zouk basic, and then I'd stop and try to hit the music with my bachata moves. which
Yeah.
also fit in Zouk moves, whichever way you want to say it came from. And I actually ended up winning
Wow.
against Zouk dancers. And then it became like this running joke that, oh my God, now Nestor's, won this.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Zouk dancer, but I use
Yeah.
the bachata moves. So, yeah, that goes from
Wow.
what you were saying.
See, always is like you're just meshing everything together, but in the end, you did win. So I mean,
Yeah, the story.
it definitely shows a lot. And for me, I would love to know what, if you do have, at least some of
Yeah.
your favorite events that you've been to dance wise that are just memorable to you.
Okay. So straight off the bat, I'll tell you right now, my favorite event of the year was always the World Salsa Championships, and then it turned into the World Latin Dance Cup.
Hmm.
Um, I work all year, and I always take a group of students, about 20 to 30, to compete, more so than anything to take them out of Australia and get them to experience dance that's coming from all over the world.
Hmm.
So that for me has always been like a huge, huge, I guess, motivating factor and importance for me to be there. One, to lead my students, um, and two, to get them to grow. Like last year, I took 30 students to Colombia from
Mm.
Australia to compete at the World Latin Dance Cup. So for them to go to a country where they wake up, they're hearing the music, they're eating the food, they're hearing the people talking Spanish. It was a whole cultural thing, not just the dancing thing. It was amazing. So for me, that's probably the most important event of the year. It's been all over the US, and then it's gone to South America. Um, and that's for that purpose. I get to take Australians out to experience the world as opposed to just here.
Hmm.
That is probably the most important one for me as far as that's concerned on a
Yeah.
personal level. And not because it's mine, but obviously my other favorite one is my Bachata Festival. It's the one that I dance the least at. But there is no bigger rewarding feeling than to stand back and see a dance floor full, 1,000 people dancing bachata, and until 4 a.m. in the morning, having an amazing time, and thinking back to the day that I used to have to beg the DJ to play a bachata song.
Yes. Yes, because I definitely know the feeling, especially in New York, because especially it being at one point a really dominated heavy with salsa, bachata was looked at as an afterthought. It was really having, if it was at a Congress festival in any way, it was always in a little room that a few people were
Yeah,
there. But as honestly as recent years, I can honestly say that bachata definitely has taken over. It's a really it's a phenomenon. I mean, going even from Spain, going from different parts of the world, and realizing how
yeah,
impactful. Like you're saying, teaching in Nepal in the Himalayan mountains, that to see the reach of how far this dance
yeah,
has, and the inspiration it gives many people. And like you said, coming from a point that you had to beg a DJ with a CD you made just to play a few songs, to now having congresses that are now, in a sense, including salsa in it, when it was the other way around at one point. And we
yeah,
understand that
yeah,
because,
yeah,
just seeing where the pushback was, and it wasn't going anywhere, and it was going to keep progressing. And coming from the Sydney, the creation of this event in Sydney, and then now seeing, especially on the in the U.S. in the States, and seeing how bachata is really everywhere. It's really a testament, and I really appreciate
Here
that
you
a
go,
person like
traditional
yourself
bachata.
had that opportunity with not just yourself but many others to create an event like that, because that helped inspire events that you see all over the world now. I mean, especially now what we're going through has really been a tough time, and we're going to touch on that. And I'm glad at least so that I could understand from your perspective events that really mean the most to you. And again, even if it is yours, it's yours because you all the time. Again, I understand as a visual person, I work heavily with the organizer, so I understand the lack of sleep. The lack, you're just focused on making sure everything runs smoothly.
yeah,
So I definitely
yeah.
appreciate it. Do you have actually any stories, like really funny stories that have happened at events of yours?
Funny stories that I can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, what about someone else being upset? Actually,
All right, let me see. I think that there's, uh, yeah, it's not necessarily funny, but it's interesting.
okay.
So there's been a lot of firsts at Bachata Festival, first and last.
Hmm.
So one of our favorite groups that we brought out to Sydney was Grupo Extreme.
Yes.
And so they came to Sydney, and we also had Jorge and Tanya at the same time.
Mm.
And they did this amazing performance where Extreme did Extraño live, and Jorge and Tanya danced to it.
Yes.
It's the first time they did that on stage. Because back then their choreography to Extraño was such a big hit. You
Yes.
getting millions and millions and millions of views, it probably still is. So that was amazing to see it. But at the same time, by the end of the festival, Group Extreme broke up.
Mm.
And so it was the first time they did something like this, which was absolutely amazing. But then by the end of it, they just broke up and they've never sung together again.
Wow.
So whereas it's not a funny story, it's an interesting
No, that is a really interesting story because to understand the behind the scenes of things of
yeah.
just seeing how this was a really good moment, but what it turned to in the future wasn't as great. But to be able to have that moment for that time,
But for us, it's an important moment in our Bachata Festival history because Grupo Extreme at that point were alongside the Aventuras and Monchi and Alessandra
mhm,
as the pioneers of the new style of bachata coming out. So to have them in Sydney was amazing. Jorge and Tanya were such an important role through YouTube to get bachata out,
mhm,
and to have them both together at the same stage for that song that made Jorge and Tanya so big and it made Extreme so big together on stage was amazing. I don't have, if I'm pretty sure if you asked them, they've never done that before,
yeah,
apart from that stage, and they never did it again. But then to have them split, it was like, oh, this is never going to be repeated. This moment that we had on stage is never going to be repeated again.
wow. And realizing too, it's understanding even besides those moments, you just when you're going through your career and understanding like the people that have come in and out of your life in this dance scene
Yeah,
and realizing some of the most, like you said, talked about Karen and Ricardo, of you being there from their first shows until now and understanding how much of an impact now the mainstream media has, and they're
yeah,
now pushing our culture forward, because that's really what I'm about, is especially even being a dancer, filmer, and now more of a public speaker, is I'm very interested in learning how things came to be,
yeah,
and you giving information on, because a lot of people don't even know there was a World Salsa Championship. People didn't know that Sydney Bachata Festival was the first Bachata Festival in its existence, whether it be in the States or abroad. And realizing over the years, you're able to give so much knowledge to people about how events that you've been to have changed. Because people
yeah,
don't get it. It's not like you can go to a competition and the next year is the same thing. No, the style has evolved. There's more turns, there's more flips. The cabaret sections are so
yeah,
more anticipated. People want to see who's going to do the biggest trick.
yeah, yeah,
So for
100%.
me, I've never been the competitor, but I've appreciated the people who are in that, because again, it's a different world than being on a Congress dance event, performing on a night showcase. It's a different
Yeah,
feeling. And again, I appreciate too you even being able to bring 20 to 30 students across from where you are and have them be influenced and understand what that life is like, because it is fun from the people I hear, but it takes a toll on you. So, again, I appreciate you really focusing on inspiring your community and showing them there's more to life than just where you are at that current moment.
yeah. I mean, look, I've been blessed with that. My parents took me out of Uruguay for a better life. And as much as I love Uruguay and I've been back, and can't wait to go back again. Um, Australia gave me everything I've got today, and so therefore I believe, and the way I've worked for a long time is I've had this opportunity given to me to experience something new, to see something new, and to live a new life. So if I can in some way repay my parents back,
Mhm.
it's to be able to create that for others, to be able to give them an opportunity to see something else, to create a different life, or be able to make something that they want happen.
Mhm.
And that's something I've loved about dance. It's given me the opportunity to live out my dreams, but it's most importantly given me the opportunity to help others follow theirs. Um, And for that, I've been very blessed.
Absolutely. And that helps me now transition into now understanding the present day and realizing, I believe, in the beginning of the year, with COVID-19 and this virus being having a global impact, me speaking to people I know in Australia, realizing that things completely shut down, and we all at one point were going through the same situation. And I'm glad at least I can talk to you and understand how was that experience for yourself when kind of our dance community, honestly, it hit our community really hard because again, we thrive on being able to connect with one another. So having something take that away from us and not knowing when we're actually going to go back to it 100%, that really I think I've seen for many dancers, it's really just made them just their outlook look a little different. So for me, I would love to know what was that feeling like when everything kind of hit, and how did it hit your community?
I guess one of the best ways for me to explain it is this. Um, you start off life, you start working, and you get your first car, and then slowly you start to upgrade. Then eventually you get your dream car. It's perfect. Everything is going so well. You've worked so hard to get there. You drive out of that car yard. You've been super careful. It's a brand new car. It's going exactly the way you want it. And then somebody hits you from the side. Out of no fault of yours, out of no preparedness, all of a sudden, that dream car you've been waiting for and worked so hard to get is gone. And then you're just left sitting there thinking, what just happened?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. I've done everything right to get this car. I've worked so hard, and somebody can just out of nowhere take it out. So
Yeah.
that's what it felt like with the studio.
Mm.
Um, so we needed to regroup. We quickly, got it, started creating online content, which was very new for us.
Hmm.
We created what we call LDA TV, which we have about 300 people on at the moment, weekly, ongoing. Apart from our dance studio, we're still struggling because we're limited to about 20% of our capacity. We've got two big studios,
Yes.
where we used to have, you know, 40 to 60 people in a class. Now we can't do more than 20.
Mm.
And we used to have five big rooms running at the same time. And now we might have three or four with 20 people in it. People are scared to come out and dance. New people are scared to come out and dance with new people. So it's really been a huge, huge hit. Um, and we feel like, well, the only thing we can do now is stand and fight and try to claw things back. And slowly, things are coming back. It's still a long road ahead.
Yeah.
Um, but to be completely honest, COVID was a big wake up call, to how important everything around us is and how things can be gone from 1 minute to the next. But it's also shown us how much we actually love what we do, how lucky we are to do what we do. And, in business, sometimes the wheels are turning, and even though you love it, you've got to keep those wheels turning. And so, what we found, even though our students was really important for us, what this has done is shown us how important every individual is,
Hmm.
because every individual counts, not the masses. Every individual counts, um, for many reasons. Whether we're affecting them because they can escape what's happening in the outside world, whether it's online or now limited numbers in the studio, whether they're escaping their work, family life, you know, loneliness, depression, whatever it is. We found that the effect that we're having to the studio is much greater than dancing,
Mm.
and maybe something we wouldn't have realized if COVID hadn't come along.
Absolutely. And realizing even with COVID now that throughout the months, things are the restrictions get a little bit easier, but our life has changed and we're going to be living under a new normal. But even going through what we're going through as of recent, to even learn from yourself and you putting out visuals and really informing your community of also the personal stuff that you're going through. And realizing now, especially through social media, I was learning that a person of your magnitude now, besides COVID and going through that process, now going through the process of having bowel cancer. And for me, it's heartbreaking because but anyone to even go through that, but also realizing what we're going through now. So many people are gone, and realizing that I've also known people in the dance community where I'm from that are no longer here, and realizing with what we're going through now, but also you going through your own battle, but still keeping strong. That truly, really is inspiring. I mean, for me, I couldn't give this any justice, and I'd rather you kind of help me understand and help the audience understand what you've been going through as of recent.
Yeah, look, it goes back to the whole car incident, right?
Hmm.
1 minute I'm teaching in the studio, fighting to get things back on track. Next minute I come out of the doctors and I've been told I have stage 4 bowel cancer, which is at first a bit confronting. Um, but, as soon as I was told that, I think it put COVID into perspective,
Hmm.
and my situation with COVID is nothing to complain about in comparison to what other people are experiencing in COVID.
Yeah.
But now for me on a personal level, to what I'm going through now and what lies ahead. So, COVID became a fight for the studio, and then overnight, it's become a fight for my life. So,
Hmm.
but I guess the other thing that it did is I love dancing, and I love every time I go onto the dance floor. But now that I've been back into the studio teach since all this started, um, every single song that comes on means so much more.
Yeah.
Every class I teach means so much more. So it's a blessing in that sense.
Hmm.
It's a reminder again on another level that COVID did
Yeah.
about how lucky we are to be doing what we're doing. Sometimes we complain that we can't go social dancing from COVID. I get it, it's hard. But there are some people out there who don't have clothes, can't eat.
Yeah.
There is no protection from COVID
Yeah.
because of the way of their lifestyle of where they're, what country they're from. I'm here in Australia and I'm very lucky, you know, where even though I've got bowel cancer, the support I've had from people, you know, um, it's been so overwhelming,
Hmm.
you know, but empowering at the same time that it's made me realize I might have a physical issue
Yeah.
and it's going to be a tough road, but the world doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've decided is even though physically my body might change
Yeah.
and I need to go through that, I've decided that my headspace has to remain exactly the same because just because my body has to go through it, it doesn't mean my head has to. It doesn't mean everybody else has to. I I feel the importance of continuing to fight for the studio of COVID and for our students has
Hmm.
not diminished because I now am sick.
Yeah. No, I
Does that make
definitely
sense?
understand because again, it's you also having not just the physical but the mental fortitude to go through not just COVID, but go through and what you're going through in your school, but also now going through your own personal battle. I mean, and it means so much, even us talking, because again, this is like I told you privately, this is really more of like historical documentation and understanding what your life was like pre dancing,
Yeah,
presently, and just realizing the impact that you've had in your community and that you're not stopping no matter what obstacles are facing you, that you're just pushing through them. It really is admirable, and it means a lot because like you said, there's so many people going through so many hardships that we don't understand. People were
yeah,
going through things before COVID and pulling
that's right.
through, and again, I'm even more thankful that our community, and you see that they care about you. It's not just about what you do on the stage, it's what you do off of it. And realizing that people do support you. And this is, again, you said this is a fight, but you're up for it because we understand nowadays with isolation and everything, with quarantine and COVID, that it really makes people just really change, and people are not used to being isolated. For me, I'm used to it doing my military work. I'm used to isolation. So
Yep.
this is easier for me than it is for someone else, but then also going through your own personal battles and still pushing through and still working towards having your people be happy, that means a lot. And I definitely commend you on that.
Thank you. Look, even through the school and safety wise, I've always pushed for mask and sanitation and making sure we don't have too many people at the studio and we keep to the numbers and we're strict with everything. And sometimes people are like, but like this situation sucks and we shouldn't be in it. And what's a mask gonna do? And blah 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 blah. Like those all those arguments. And I've always stood firm, was like, you know what? If I get sick from COVID, I might be okay. But the person next to me might not be. Or
Yeah.
the person they take it home to. And so now me in this position, especially once I start going through chemo, I become one of those people.
Hmm.
One of the ones that can't get sick from COVID because I'll be immune compromised.
Yeah.
And so therefore the stance that I've had at the studio for others now more so applies to me as well. Because I become one of those people that I was trying to protect.
Absolutely.
Um, and so even that has put a whole new meaning and a whole new view on everything. Because yeah, it's as much as it's about everyone else, it's also about me as well now.
Yeah. No,
Um, and it's interesting because some people would, share a very different point of view on COVID than I do. Now they see me and they're like, now we get it.
and what you just said there touched a really important notion, is that I've talked to many people, and for me, my wife works in the medical field, and she's honestly told me, and I believed it from day one, this is real. This is something. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah,
And realizing, especially in our dance community, we've been hit really a lot the hardest as well, because we're always focused on being close to one another. So,
yeah,
and I think too, what you touched on was, because you were, now you've become one of the people you tried to protect, and realizing that a lot of promoters and organizers in the states as well don't, it doesn't look like they see it that way, but it's also because when they're not affected by it, it doesn't affect them. And that is a selfish way to look at it. And I can clearly and wholeheartedly say that here, because I keep myself protected to protect people like yourself, no matter what, because again, it's about everyone. It's about us as a whole. We want to protect one another. I personally wear a mask when I go out to places of any big crowd size, no matter what. And I appreciate you, even with everything you've gone through in your life, and seeing also what COVID has done to the community, still keeping that safe approach. And that right there needs to be adopted worldwide. I mean, there are many organizers and people and directors doing it, but I would love for everyone to do it, because again, it's about showing the respect and appreciation for those who go through this or know someone has gone through it.
yeah. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And
And
look,
mhm.
yeah, no, go
No, I'm
ahead.
sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah, and when it comes to what I've got right now, um, statistically chances are good, and I'm
Yeah.
aware of that. But I'm not a statistic. I'm Nestor, and I
Yeah.
and I would do whatever it takes to not be yet just another statistic. You know,
Mhm.
um, there's no amount of getting upset. There's no amount of crying. There's no amount of stressing, blaming, or taking out anybody that's going to change my situation.
Yeah.
So I made a decision with my wife before I got my first, prognosis to where I am now. So look, I've thought about it and I've made peace that if they tell me we can't do anything, I'm going to continue living my life the same way until my last day.
Yeah.
But if they say to me, you've got 1% chance to extend your life, then that 1% is enough for me to fight through it,
Absolutely.
you know? And so they've given me what they think is going to be, and it's more statistical numbers like 20 to 30% of a 5 year,
Yeah.
longevity. Um, and when you first hear that, it's like, it
Yeah.
doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, well, that's at least 4 or 5 more years I can do what I love.
Yeah.
But for me, if they're going to give me that long, I will continue to live my life the way I do and work harder, stay fit, stay healthier, and be consistent with what I believe and do. And I think it's going to take me beyond that. And look, if it's not meant to, then it's not meant to. But I'm not going to change the way I live. I'm not going to change the way I behave. I'm not going to change my morals or my approach in life just because I've got this now.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I appreciate having the opportunity to have you on this platform because, again, I've learned so much thus far and realizing too how much of a fighter you are because there are many people who can go through situations like this and don't have that mental fortitude to keep pushing. And realizing that a person in our dance community that really has contributed so much and to the success and the longevity and the consistency of the events we see, and still pushing ahead no matter what they're going through. That's inspiring to so many, including myself. And just being able to have this opportunity to speak to you, it means a lot, because I want to be that promoter that you are or that you were at one point, and understanding that no matter what obstacles you're facing, you can push through because at the end of the day, you have to go through it. You can have all the support systems you want, but at the end of the day, it's you that has to make that decision how far you want to take it to make sure you're okay. And
Yeah.
for me, honestly, Nestor, this has been a very inspiring, touching interview because, again, just knowing what you've done or how much of yourself you put out for your community, this is a celebration of your success. Because, again, without doing that Sydney Bachata Festival so many years ago, who would know how the rate of events that we would have would happen? We wouldn't know, like, if we didn't have this event, how long would it have taken to actually have one? So I thank you for being one of the pioneers to really initiate that push to do something like this because, see, 13, 14 plus years later, and you're seeing that bachata dancing really is taking over. And that even with COVID, our artists and directors and travelers, they're now utilizing the online marketing to still, push their content out and
Yeah.
have the people that love this community still be a part of it. And I applaud you for still being able to, have a studio, deal with your own personal issues as well, but also always making sure that your community is happy. It definitely is a testament. And for me, been nothing less than an honor just having you here. And at least before we do go, I would love to know if you can really give myself and the audience some last few words.
Love what you do, and just remember how blessed we are. Um, and I was saying before that the fact that we get to dance, the fact that we get to go to festivals, parties, even the fact that we get to, have clothes on our back and eat
Mhm.
and travel, man, we are so blessed in
Yeah,
comparison to a majority of the rest of the world. And don't take it for granted because it's not until somebody says, hey, you may not be here tomorrow, that
yeah,
everything starts to sink in. And then you're either going to regret that you didn't do things or you're going to appreciate everything you've done. I feel like I appreciate everything I've done. I've got no regrets. And I think if everyone takes that approach, when everybody's day is going to come eventually,
yeah,
hopefully not soon, right? But at that point in time, to look back and know that you've appreciated life and done everything that you could with it, instead of spend time worrying about what you don't have or worrying about what others are doing, I think that's one thing for everyone that I would recommend to everyone. Appreciate, don't take things for granted, enjoy, and make the most out of everything.
absolutely. Again, I thank you for coming on this platform and just sharing your gems of knowledge that you have and experiences and, just motivational keys and tools that I can also live by, but so many others, and realizing that no matter what you've gone through or continue to go through, that you're pushing ahead and living your life the same. Because, again, you understand your life will change, but again, the world keeps on moving. And so again, I'm thankful that we were able to have this. And at least before we go, would love to see if you can give myself and the audience some contact information on where they can reach you or see about your online classes and etc.
Yeah. Look, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram under Nestor Manuelian. My dance school is Latin Dance Australia. Again, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Our online classes are all through Facebook and Zoom, but we have a page called LDA TV, which is a private page. You go online, you purchase a membership, and then we add you. We've got something like at the studio, we have 58 classes running at the moment, but online we have 20. They're live, but then we keep them online if people want to make the most of it. We do have people from around the world there as well. But that's it. And the other thing is, if you do have any questions, whether it's yourself or anybody watching, especially with what I'm going through or knowledge about what I've gone through, like I said to you, I'm an open book. Send me a message on Facebook. Send me a message on Instagram. If I don't answer straight away, don't worry, I will answer. If anybody takes time and energy to write to me, I always make sure I give it back. And look, that's it. If you want to get in contact with me, I'm all ears.
Absolutely, and it's been a pleasure having you on tonight and be able to understand the man beyond the stage. And again, I definitely thank you for all your contributions. I appreciate your journey because it's not easy to stick around even till now with everything going on. So again, I hope you're staying safe out there in Australia, in the Sydney area. I'm definitely thankful that George was able to connect us together as well. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, be able to speak and take your time out to speak to me and the audience. So again, I thank you, and I definitely hope you have a great time teaching your classes still, and again, being safe. And I hope one day we can definitely meet if I come to Australia or in the future, because I definitely see the beauty in what Sydney has to offer. So thank you again for coming on tonight.
It's a pleasure and it's my honor. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you again.
So, cool.
Yeah, we'll see each other soon. And thank you
Hopefully.
everyone for tuning in, and have a great night.